Hello again. I'm Wojciech Nadachowski, and welcome to our final session, a panel on supporting mental health in the workplace. Our panel has expertise in supporting mental health, as well as implementing mental health programs at work. And we'll hear about a new resource from the Olga Tennyson Autism Research Centre at Trobe University, specifically designed to support autistic employees. Our panel discussion will be moderated by Symons, workplace facilitator and clinical psychologist at Black Dog Institute. Before I hand over to Anne, I would like to let you know that you have the opportunity to submit questions for our panel by typing your questions into the Q&A pane. You can access that pane by clicking on the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Other people's questions will appear in the pane once they have been approved by our moderators. If you like a question and are keen to hear it answered, you can give it an upvote by clicking on the arrow beside it. We will try to answer as many questions as possible, but depending on how many come through, we may not be able to get through them all. All right, that's it from me. I'll hand it over to Anne to take it from here.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to the final session of the Autism at Work Summit, in which we're going to explore this very important topic of supporting mental health in the workplace. I'm Anne Symons, clinical psychologist in private practice and workplace facilitator at the Black Dog Institute. So I'm moderating the session, in which we're going to be hearing from Dr. Simon Bury, who is a postdoctoral research fellow at Trobe University, Dr. Susan Hayward, also a postdoctoral research fellow at Trobe University, as well as offering a lived experience perspective, and Cindy Nicollet from Queensland, who is a psychologist currently working at Untapped as an autism spectrum consultant. So I'd like to invite each of our panellists to further introduce themselves and tell us a bit about the work they're doing in this area. Cindy, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure, thanks, Anne. Hi, I'm Cindy Nicollet. I'm based here in Brisbane in Queensland. I'm a registered psychologist and I'm, as Anne mentioned, an autism spectrum consultant with Untapped. I've worked in the space of neurodiversity as a psychologist, a therapist in private practice. I've also worked in government and non-government organisations, so worked in this space for a number of years now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Cindy, and we're delighted to have you with us this afternoon. Over to you, Susan.
Hi, guys. So I'm Susan. You already know I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at POTAC at La Trobe Uni. So I just research stuff. My research broadly concerns autistic people in the workplace. I have a particular interest in women. Autistic women in the workplace. I also look at mental health, both inside and outside work.
Thanks so much, Susan, and we really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us today. And Simon, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the work you're doing?
Sure, my name's Simon. I'm a research fellow at the Olga Tennyson Autism Research Centre and also a clinical psychologist. My work currently is more focused on adult outcomes for autistic people, including employment, mental health, and more social identity type stuff. But I have a new role currently and focusing a bit more on mental health more broadly and factors that limit accessibility to autistic people in receiving timely support.
Okay, great. Thanks, Simon, and great to have you here with us. So to open up our exploration of this topic, I'd like to invite you, first of all, to share your thoughts and insights on what you consider to be some of the most common mental health issues experienced by neurodivergent individuals in the workplace. Susan, can we hear from your perspective first of all?
Yeah, I'm going to leave something for everybody else to talk about. So I'll just name a couple. So burnout being number one, with which depression does share some similarities, and anxiety. Those are my top two.
Yes, okay. Yep, burnout. We're hearing a lot about that, aren't we, in the last few years? Very significant issue. Thanks, Susan. And so, Simon, from your research, what would you add to this?
Well, there's two ways, I think, to look at this. First of all, is mental health challenges that are already existing when entering the workplace, and that can cover the broad spectrum, but presenting challenges in the workplace can be along the lines of, as Susan suggested, depression, burnout, but anxiety would be a significant factor within the workspace. But work can also be a stressful place, and this, I think, is especially so if you're trying to fit into an environment that doesn't really match the way you think and feel. So the workplace for autistic people can present, I think, more stress. And we know from the research that stress, especially stress in the workplace, can be a downstream determinant of developing mental health challenges, especially around anxiety and depression within the workplace.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Yeah, that's really interesting to hear about that. And it's making me think about the impact that these difficulties are having on individuals in the workplace. Cindy, I'm wondering if you could share with us some of your insights regarding this, the impact from your experience as a therapist, people you've worked with.
Yeah, sure. So I guess picking up on what Susan and Simon were saying, I think for me, the biggest thing that I see is that for a lot of people that I work with in the role I'm in now is that there's a lot of masking going on in the workplace. So this is trying to fit in and cope in an environment that can be really challenging for a number of reasons, trying to manage their mental health concerns that they may already have when they've commenced work, and then any other compounding variables that then just kind of exacerbate that. So increased stress because they're trying to fit in. They've got this opportunity to work, which may be the first opportunity in their adult life to work, and they so desperately want it to work that they will mask the challenges around, I'm getting overwhelmed, I'm getting stressed. And as Susan was saying, a lot of the time that masking can lead to burnout, can exacerbate some of those mental health conditions, obviously impact their ability to be successful at work, whatever success would look like for them. And I think the other thing too is that for a lot of the adults I've worked with, they really struggle with this. Do I tell my employer that I'm autistic? Do I tell my employer that I need accommodations? Because again, this is the first time I might have actually had a job in my adult life and I don't want to stuff this up. And if I tell them, is that going to jeopardize the opportunity for me to keep having this job, or are people going to treat me differently because I've now said I'm autistic, I need some extra help in the workplace or supports in the workplace?
Okay, thanks, Susan. Yes, it's...
Can I just add to that?
I'll hand over in one moment.
Sorry.
Susan,
Just on the impact.
Sorry, you go.
Sorry, I got excited.
Okay.
Just on the impact, I think it's also important to note that the impact of mental health issues, particularly job-related burnout, can be stuff like substance use issues, meltdowns, shutdowns. Like, for example, some people, when they get home from work, they can't do anything other than lie on the couch because they find it so exhausting. Some people might become mute, like they can't talk to their partner, can't talk to their kids. And some people are incapable of even cooking themselves dinner when they get home from work because of workplace stress. I'll mention it later as well, but I have a paper that actually details some of this stuff where people actually comment on the impact of workplace stress on them.
Thanks, Susan. So we're talking about often a lot of distress and a real impact on people's functioning. And I think just back to what you were saying, Cindy, about the masking and the enormous effort that goes with that, right? How exhausting it is for people, but also how isolating as well. So I think what you were alluding to about issues around or fears around disclosing in the workplace is such an important thing for us to be aware of, and raises issues around how we can think about destigmatizing mental health issues in the workplace too. Simon, would you like to add anything at this point?
I was just going to say, and then it becomes a double whammy for if you're already disclosing for autism, then disclosing mental health on top of that becomes an additional challenge. And then who do you disclose to? How many people do you disclose to? When do you? And if upon doing that, if not, how does it limit the support you can get or the timeliness of support you get? Can then add an additional stress so that compounds the stress already from being in the workplace.
How will your privacy be protected once you have disclosed? What are the implications of it? So it's a really huge decision for people to make, right? With significant implications, ramifications for them.
And we see it what's more broadly across all mental health literature, but we see it especially in the autism literature around the disclosure. And this is also can go to expectations based on employer or past experiences with their employer of last time I disclosed, it didn't go well. Why would I disclose now? The large onus on educating employers and support workers within the workplace on how best to support autistic people and it can go a long way into helping to reduce some of this additional stress or getting timely support when needed.
And how can we make this process of disclosure a safe one for people? So turning our focus a bit now to, I guess, more the workplace side of things after talking about the individual side of things. When we consider how, I guess, the workplace can sometimes have a very positive impact on our well-being, the sense of social connection it can provide us, sense of purpose, etc. If we think about what are some of the protective factors that are important for workplaces to harness. Simon, would you like to touch on these first of all?
Well, I think what we've focused on already and what I'm going to, spruik a bit later on is education. I think educating the workplace on autism specifically and how best to support autistic people. Also how to develop workplaces that are more embrace more universal to design. So the onus isn't always on the autistic person to try and fit into workplaces that may not match their way of thinking or being. Other important factors, along with a lot of psychological support, is having support people within the workplace, be that a supportive colleague or a support worker or a supportive boss, someone that you can confide in within the workplace or someone that can be that person to lean on when needed is shown to be an important protective factor, both within and without the work, outside of a workplace.
So knowing someone's got your back in the workplace. Cindy, would you like to add anything to this around protective factors?
Sure. So I think as Simon was saying, definitely the education side of things, but targeting the education at the right level. And I think getting certainly higher management on board to see the importance of kind of funneling down through the layers. And I guess that means for us to be able to get in there and do the education, upper management can see the importance of that kind of shared understanding, because I think often it can be the case that it needs to be the autistic employee that needs to change their behaviour to fit into the workplace, but it's getting them to understand that no, it needs to be a shared exchange or a shared changing of some of our or adjustments in the workplace. So whether it's around workload, whether it's around communication in the workplace, whether it's around the environmental space in the workplace and how that caters for everybody. We often say that sometimes making those adjustments not only helps the neurodiverse employee, but also helps others in the space. So I think it's really emphasising the importance that it needs to be both parties that are on board with this, and not just, again, the focus needing to be on the autistic or the neurodiverse employee that needs to change their behaviour and understand the protocols in the workplace and the unwritten rules in the workplace.
So you're really emphasising the importance of strong leadership around this, Cindy.
Yeah, absolutely. In my role at Untapped, we've certainly got within our programs, our neurodiversity programs in a number of organisations, a real buy-in from upper management and seeing the importance of this and certainly encouraging that staff, upper management, team leaders, whoever it might be, are participating in that and really enhancing their knowledge so that then when they have team members that are neurodiverse, they can understand better and provide them with whatever support they might need so that they're successful. So it's not as much of a foreign landscape. There's certainly challenges there, but if there's that understanding on both sides, then some of those obstacles can be managed much, much better.
Thanks, Cindy, for really identifying some of those things that are really helpful and effective for us to be mindful of. Susan, I'd like to come over to you now and hear a little bit about how you prioritise your own self-care and mental health while at work.
Me personally, I guess I've learned that no one's actually going to look out for my well-being other than myself. So one of the biggest things that I do currently, like in my role, is around setting boundaries and being able to say no, because I'm asked to do a lot of extra things that are not part of my core role, so like not what I'm actually paid for, and I don't really have time to do anyway. So having those boundaries really, really helps me. And the other, probably one of the biggest things, I'm a bit of an exercise addict, as Simon can probably vouch for me because we're friends on Garmin and you can see all the stuff that I'm doing. Really, it helps me to regulate myself. So like in my previous job, like I'd just take an extended lunch break, for an hour and a half in the middle of the day and just go for a long run. And the other thing as well, I've got a few trusted colleagues that I just vent to when needed. And I've also got a lot of autonomy and flexibility in my role, so I can adjust things to suit myself.
Thanks for sharing those, Susan. They sound like really, really helpful things and, things I'm sure, many of us could benefit from implementing to support and maintain our well-being. So I guess one avenue through which we can really improve the experiences of neurodivergent individuals in the workplace is to develop initiatives directed at building the capacity of autism spectrum consultants. So let's hear about one such initiative now. Simon, can you tell us about the mental health training and resource kit you and your colleagues have developed that offers a great practical training for upskilling consultants?
I sure can. I can share my screen too. Can everyone see my screen before I get too far? Okay, so yes, we'll talk now about supporting a neurodiverse workforce and mental health and wellbeing resource and training package, which is a very long title for the product we've developed at OTARC. but I'll just provide a bit of background first, if you can indulge me with that. So employment and mental health. You've probably noticed from attending 2 days at a conference, but autistic people are significantly underrepresented in employment in Australia and worldwide. And this is in comparison both to people with no disabilities and other disability groups. And we also know that autistic people with higher rates of co-occurring mental health conditions. What I've got here is the 12-month data from a specific study, Hollock et al., and data from the ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, just to give a dirty estimate between the two of the sort of differences we can see in diagnostic rates. This means autistic people, in addition to trying to fit into a world that's not made up for them, have additional barriers that can present challenges within the workplace. The barriers more broadly to the workplace for autistic people are generally centered around autism symptomology, or autistic traits, with a large focus on social communication and interaction, and around restricted and repetitive behaviours. And we know that these sorts of challenges impact at each stage of employment, including job interviews and recruitment, which use methods that present additional barriers or are restrictive to autistic people in finding jobs, and continues on to challenges within the workplace, both in interactions with others and job task and role assignment. So we know of initiatives, and I'm going to use DXE technology as a case study here, that work to addressing some of these challenges and supporting autistic people in the workplace. So the DXE technology down the lane program works in the IC information technology area. It's a 3-year program, and they do a lot to address autism specific challenges. So they have alternate recruitment strategies, which include paid session to show your skills rather than relying solely on the interview. And they provide job support coaching and staff training within the workplace. And because of the work they've done, they have a high success rate within this program, supporting autistic people. So we see that overall in the study we've done on the cost benefit analysis of the program, we see that 62.5% of the participants or the employees in the program completed the program, but 25% of those who left the program transitioned early to alternative competitive employment, which is also a bit of a success of a program, because part of the program is developing self-advocacy skills and job work skills. And from our cost benefit analysis, the program itself presents significant savings to the government through reduced reliance on welfare, but most importantly, saw a great benefit to autistic people through increased wages and access to the labour market. However, from the research in the program and from talks with people within the program, we see that the employees report great benefits such as a sense of purpose and financial independence, and the access to more social relationships that they find really worthwhile and beneficial. But in our study, we see there's no changes in mental health and wellbeing overall. Normally when people start a job, we see a bit of a honeymoon phase where wellbeing improves. We did not see this. But also talking with the autism spectrum consultants and people within the program, we see that mental health challenges provide an additional factor that is present challenges in supporting autistic people in the workplace. And importantly, the sustainability of the program, so keeping people within the program and into long-term employment. But most alarmingly, staff within the program identify that current tools and training to support mental health of autistic people were either unavailable or insufficient, and that added an additional barrier to supporting people within the workplace. So this led to DXE technology, was in a collaboration with ANZ Bank, getting OTARC, myself, to develop and Susan, the Supporting a Neurodiverse Workforce and Mental Health and Wellbeing Training Resource Package. And Untapped Holdings has taken this further, so it's now also available as training for organisations presented by the Autism Spectrum consultants. And we also have an online course, which I'll give a bit of a demo to just show a bit about what we've done. But the training itself consists of 11 modules, and these modules were developed with the support of autistic authors, as well as consultancy with autistic people, as well as other stakeholders from business and from support services. This has led to changes throughout the package and focus on it, such as creating the autism-friendly work environment as greater focus put on this and workplace bullying and culture. And I tend to be verbose when writing, and so there's a lot of feedback on me being more succinct and user-friendly, so it's a lot more user-friendly with that feedback. So can I get the website? Can you now see the website? Excellent, I see nodding. So this is the online website. So the idea of the course was to build on initiatives in the workplace like mental health first aid to provide training to the organisation, but with a focus in this one of specific information for supervisors and managers, colleagues, as well as autistic staff themselves. And it's set up, we've got different areas. So we've got, and then what is wellbeing. We also talk about briefly what it does mean to be on the autism spectrum, and talk more broadly about factors associated with autism that may present barriers when accessing the workplace. We spend a lot of time talking about the idea of creating autism-friendly work environments and focusing on workplace culture and changing workplace policies and procedures to be more accessible and less discriminatory to autistic people. And then we focus on mental health, and in the mental health space, we do stress, anxiety, depression, sleep and wellbeing, non-suicidal self-injury, and suicide and suicidal ideation. Unlike other workplace mental health training, you might have guessed from what I mentioned earlier that I consider stress to be a really important factor, because it allows us to intervene early when supporting people within the workplace before things can get out of control and lead to greater challenges. So first we start on managing stress within the workplace. And how we've designed the training itself is, first we talk about what is stress more broadly, what it might look like, or for each of the modules, what it might look like, how it might impact everyone, that include autistic people. And then we provide specific information about what stress and autism might look like within the workplace and how best to support autistic people in the workplace. So if we look at what is stress, so we do workplace common factors that lead to stress, with factors on how to identify stress, with videos with me talking.
Stress in the body.
Can you hear that?
People are not always aware they are experiencing stress. Sometimes pressures in their life can build up in stages and go unnoticed. For some people, noticing the signs of stress in the body is difficult, which is especially true for people on the autism spectrum. Not noticing these signs of stress can make it difficult to combat stress.
Yeah, so we have videos throughout. We also have information like what is stress, how is it experienced, what does it look like, how to identify it and how you feel, behave and act, as well as what it might look like in others. So if you can support colleagues experiencing stress, then we have things to test your knowledge as we go through. We have a great focus on individual stresses within the workplace and what factors might impact on stress, and what the impact can be on the workplace and the organisation, to get more buy-in from the organisation of the need to support areas of mental health such as stress. And as I mentioned, then we focus on autism-specific factors with more videos.
Autism pressures and stresses. People on the autism spectrum experience the same pressures described earlier, but they may also experience additional pressures related to autism. For many people on the autism spectrum, the world can be an unpredictable and stressful place. The need for people on the autism spectrum to adapt to environments that do not match their way of thinking and being can also be a great source of stress. Things employees who are not on the autism spectrum might not notice or think about, like travelling to work on public transport or managing the noise of traffic or crowded spaces, can be highly stressful for employees on the autism spectrum. For many, they have experienced many stresses before the workday even commences. Thus, some employees on the autism spectrum may be at heightened levels of stress before starting work just from navigating the world.
And we have more specific ways to recognise stress in autistic people, including videos, and then we have lived experiences. I will not share that at request of the participant. And then we move to stress management strategies. And again, this is set up the same similar way, that we first provide more broader factors that support stress or other mental health factors within the workplace to make this beneficial to everyone that does the training, but also those strategies can also be supportive of autistic people. And then we have specific strategies for each of the stakeholder groups. So we have specific handouts. My internet is very slow currently, I think because I've got the video going. For employers, and we have similar ones for colleagues and autistic employees themselves. And the way this is structured comes back from the consultancy with, especially with the autistic consultants who wanted to make sure that they could see all the information that was presented to everyone doing the course. So throughout we have different strategies and stuff, including embarrassing videos of myself if you ever feel the need to have a laugh at myself doing some deep breathing exercises with quality acting. What a picture to land on. So yeah, overall we have the mental health strategies, and then we have more information about providing and seeking support. Both we often find autistic people are very empathetic and also want to know how best to support other people within the workplace, including their colleagues. And then we have information about supporting wellbeing, specifically with the return of work, and the policies that are important in recognising that sometimes even having training and strategies put in place to manage mental health within the workplace, sometimes people do need to take time off, and how best to do that inclusively so that they feel supported even when they're having time off, and how can we bring them back to the workplace in the least stressful way. Part of doing the course, you get a certificate, and then we also have all the resources throughout the training. And then a bibliography if you want to do further reading. So that is the course more broadly. If you want to find more information about the course, you can visit this website. It's the neurodiversityhub.org/mental health. You can email the Untapped people at mht@untapped/talent.com, or if it's easier, just you can search Simon Bury or send me an email and I'll put you onto the people that know what's going on. Thank you. I'll stop sharing now.
Thanks so much, Simon. What a comprehensive training package it is. I really love the way it's those training modules are divided up. It gives us a real insight to the variety of essential things that the consultants need to be across. And I heard your emphasis there on supporting recovery and intervening early, the importance of that. And it seems like this is a great toolkit to support that whole process.
Yeah, there's generally 3 levels of providing support, and the initial is education and prevention. The other is getting in early and supporting people, and then it's supporting people when they are in greater crisis. And so we've got aspects of that throughout the training to ensure we're providing attacking at each levels, providing support.
Fantastic. And I also really liked the way those additional stresses seem to be really clearly articulated too in the training. I think that will be Yeah, very helpful thing. So Cindy, as a consultant who has undertaken this training, can you tell us a bit about what you regard the positive features of the training to be and how you envisage it being useful?
Yeah, sure. So I guess it's, the primary thing being addressing that need to have that autism specific content. So addressing mental health concerns for autistic individuals. And as Simon was showing through it, it's quite easy to navigate. So obviously you can navigate through the different areas. And you've obviously got different ways of, getting the information. So you've got video content, you've got activities, and then obviously written information. And so then it's kind of delivered through a few different modalities. And I guess as well, the other positive feature that it's actually, as Simon was saying, kind of looking at those three areas. So that initial kind of support, the support throughout, and then not neglecting that if someone does need to take time out, how can we support them to come back to work? Again, because I think that's a piece that often gets missed. I think with even just general population, if people need to take time out for illness or mental illness, physical illness, there's not often a really good mechanism to how do we support them while they're taking time out, and then how do we support them to come back into the workplace. And so I think it's really good that we've got an element of that in the package. That the fact that we've got a bunch of different resources as well, so additional reading lists and other resources again, so that people who do the training have got some stuff there that they can then use with their staff sort of post the training as well. I think, which is really helpful. And again, I think it's just bringing attention to the fact that mental health, as it is being such a topical thing being discussed within workplaces in general, just really emphasising that it needs to be something that we're thinking about for our autistic neurodiverse employees, that it's something we also need to be thinking about. And while there might be some stuff there, obviously having something that's more tailor-made to the group is much more beneficial. And so making sure that training gets delivered to the people that need to know, so that they've got that information there that's more targeted.
Fantastic. Thanks, Cindy, for sharing all of those insights. Lots of positives there and potential benefits. And I think what you were saying about that support, if people do take time off, that's sometimes, where people can slip through the gaps a bit. That does feel really critical. I think typically there's maybe some support offered initially, but very quickly that kind of drops away when the person is no longer present in the workplace. So it sounds like a really user-friendly package from your experience, Cindy. Fantastic. Okay, so returning to this notion then of well-being in the workplace, Susan, based on your research findings, what recommendations have you got for employers or organisations looking to improve workplace well-being?
I think we touched on it a lot when we were talking about protective factors. So, sort of access to workplace adjustments and things like that. So aside from that and allowing people some downtime at work, my research doesn't show, but it does point towards that training package that Simon mentioned, like everything is sort of included in there. So I think that's definitely worth a try and save your money on EAP, because that's not very useful anyway. But from my research, like recognizing poor well-being in yourself, like as an autistic person, can be quite challenging. Again, that resource is designed to help with that. As well as, having sort of an external sounding board as well. So engagement with like a psychologist regularly can also assist. And again, I'm saying not saying EAP because it's not very useful for people. What people have said has been useful for them in terms of helping them with their wellbeing at work is access to a good supervisor. So supervisor seems to play a key role in supporting wellbeing at work.
Thanks, Susan. So organisations really knowing where to point people to for support outside of EAP, I hear you saying, but yeah, perhaps a range of different resources and services, but having knowledge of those is really important. And I also heard you emphasise the importance of flexibility there on the side of the organisation. That's such a critical way that we can support people, right? With that flexibility.
Yeah, and not just people on the autism spectrum, sorry, Simon, but like that flexibility, allowing flexibility supports everybody.
Yes.
And my research shows, and other people's research, not just mine, shows that like it benefits everybody, not just people on the spectrum, but it is more important for people on the spectrum. Go, Simon.
Yeah, I was going to, sorry, one of the going to employment assistance programs for those who may not know what EAPs are.
Sorry. Yeah.
I think run into similar problems that we often see in getting support for autistic people in general mental health practice, where there's a lot of general support, psychological support or mental health support don't themselves have a good understanding of autism and how to support autism. So going to these programs that also often have limited access, so you can only, normally it's around 4 or 5 visits, provide limited benefit. And I think from, I'm going to quote some of your research, Susan, is that understanding individual, because autistic people within the workplace, sometimes the types and timing of support may be different than the general population. So for managers to get to know their staff members and have a good understanding of when they may need support and how best to provide that is important.
Yes. Thanks, Simon. So maybe now we will consider some questions from our audience. And on that topic of support, our first question we have is, what supports can workplaces provide to autistics who experience fluctuating anxiety and energy levels? Often we have used any available sick leave and feel forced to work, or we fear negative ramifications if we don't come to work. Cindy, what would you be recommending here?
I'm seeing Susan nodding her head a lot. So
yes,
I'm
actually.
thinking I might actually get Susan to start a response.
This is resonating with you.
Did that say it all? Can you repeat the question again for me?
Yeah, sure. It is quite a lengthy question. So perhaps
can you put it in the chat so it's in writing?
Yeah. What supports can workplaces provide to autistics who experience fluctuating anxiety and energy levels?
Yeah. Organisations can, again, it comes back to that whole flexibility, like a flexible working model. So, for example, if it's possible that you can do your job from home, and I think COVID taught us a lot, that a lot of people's jobs can actually be undertaken at home. You don't need to come in. So offering that would be awesome, because then people can work around their own schedules. So if they do experience those fluctuations, they can work when they feel they're most productive and have downtime, to do something else when they're not. So I think that flexibility or a flexible working model is key. And even being able to work from home or some other location, not necessarily in, at the work site, would also be great, because, you can control your environment then. So not just the physical environment, but the level of interaction that you have with other people too. So
great.
That's probably the biggest thing. There are lots of other little things, but that's the biggest thing, I think.
That just sounds like such a sensible, practical solution, right? And it deals with this issue. The other issue that's raised in that question about people using up sick leave, and, you know, fearing ramifications if they don't physically come into work. So, yeah, you've offered a great solution for that. Thanks, Susan. I'll move on to another question now from the audience. We've got, yes, we've talked about EAP services. I think I'll put this one to you, Cindy, because it's back to this topic of masking that we were touching on earlier. Do you find differences with regards to masking rates across different types of workplaces or the levels of supports provided?
Yeah, I don't know if there's even been research done definitively. I would have it a guess, and this is just going purely off my own interactions, that where there's a higher kind of load of needing to interact with people, that masking is probably strongest. And as Susan was saying, you know, if the person is working in their home environment where they can manage a lot of variables that otherwise are really challenging to manage in an office space, probably that need to mask to fit in is less likely, if not at all. So I would imagine those jobs that are the more higher demand in terms of those interactions needing to take place is probably when you're going to see more masking. I think as well that you tend to see more women than men mask. I'm not saying that it's exclusively that way, but I can certainly think of occasions with women I've worked with where it seemed to be something that they would bring up in discussion with me, that, you know, I've got a job where I have to talk to a lot of people, and so I kind of mask all day in order to just get through the day, and then get, as Susan was saying at the beginning, get home and they're completely exhausted. They just can't do any of the stuff they kind of need to do or would like to do when they get home, because they need to just recuperate from just that overload of trying to cope through the day.
So much energy going into that mask.
Absolutely.
I think workplace culture can play a key role too in when people need to, and the amount that they need to mask. More supportive, autistic-friendly environments that maybe have a more open approach to supporting autistic people and the needs of autistic people might play a role in how much people need to mask within the workplace.
Yes, for sure. And Simon, related to that is back again to this issue of disclosure. We've got another question here regarding that. How would you approach disclosing your autism to a new employer? Should you disclose straight away or wait until you can trust your manager first? What would be some of your advice you could offer regarding this?
This is a minefield topic. We're currently doing research on actually this year on the timing of disclosure, but it really it comes down to a lot of different factors around what you know of your organisation so far, and if they advertise as neurodiverse, do they have history? Can you see history of that within the culture? Can of a place can impact how willing you are to disclose. There is research to show that people who do disclose often have better outcomes in the workplace more broadly, but that doesn't speak to what the cost might be in terms of some people do disclose and get shunned or get reduced workloads or get so the research looking at the long-term benefits say it is a benefit, but it doesn't speak to what that workplace might be like. So I know my answer, I talked a lot there and didn't really give a real answer to...
Oh, no, I think it was really helpful, Simon. I mean, yeah, what you're alluding to there, I think, finding out information first about the workplace is pretty important to guide, what those perceived implications might be of disclosure, because we can't predict exactly how it will be received, whether the person will receive a positive response. So building up a supportive response rather. So building up that trust actually does sound important.
Yeah. But we do often find also that people end up disclosing when things get especially bad. And that has additional problems because then it's harder to it's hard to manage smaller problems than larger mountains. So that's when it could be become more difficult. So it's a mindful, there's no clear answer.
Yes.
It becomes, getting to feel a sense of safety of people, but that can also be difficult for autistic people who may not, the double empathy problem, knowing when people might be supportive or when they are showing signs of support.
Yes, okay. And I think we've possibly got time for just one or two more questions, but I'll pick this one out again for you, Simon, because I think it's a really important one about how people can access the training. Are there plans to roll out schemes such as the DCX Technology Dandelion program across other industries? If businesses have an interest in setting up similar programs on their own, where can they go for more information assistance?
I don't actually know. That might be good to give to people like Untapped or to know what's happening in the industry. But
sorry, I did have one suggestion come through here, which is the Neurodiversity Hub. So,
I was going to discuss that. That's associated with Untapped, so that has a lot of information and resources. Just as another cheeky plug, if organisations want to a free, we're currently doing we've got a linkage grant with DXC Technology and Autism Spectrum Australia, and we're rolling out the mental health and autism training in workplaces, as well as some job crafting strategies to try and create better job fit with between the individual and their workplace. So if you are an employer and you want to get some free training within your workplace, or you're interested in supporting autistic people more broadly, give me or Susan an email and we can get you in touch with that study as it goes forward. Okay,
fantastic. Thanks, Simon. So look, we are coming to the close of our session. I think we've explored some of the fundamental issues relating to supporting mental health in the workplace. And I want to acknowledge many of the strategies, practices and support mechanisms we've talked about can really play a significant role in creating more mentally healthy workplaces for all. Wondering if there's any takeaway message you'd like to get out there, Susan?
It's hard to nail it down. Try the package. Bit of a plug for the package, but try the package. Right. I think it's a useful resource.
Cindy, your takeaway?
Yeah, I think it's just being really mindful that it's not about the neurodiverse autistic person that needs to change, but it needs to be both parties that need to kind of look at what they're doing and how to meet each other in the middle and develop that shared understanding of one another.
Mutual responsibility and shared understanding. And Simon, one last thing from you.
I would just be around empathy.
Yeah.
Being empathetic to people within the workplace and for yourself within the workplace. Give yourself a bit of a break. Mental health is not just the low ebbs of mental health, it's also positive wellbeing. So any positive step to giving yourself a little pat on the back would be good, I think.
Thanks, Simon. And thanks to our audience for being present today. Hope you've got many useful takeaways from the session, and a big thanks to our panel, Susan, Cindy and Simon, for sharing your expertise.
Yes, thank you very much, guys. And thank you, Anne, for moderating that session. And some great takeaways there. Thank you. So as a reminder, all of our sessions have been recorded, and you can find all of the recordings by clicking on the schedule menu and choosing on demand. Pretty much all of the sessions up to date are up there. There's already 15 that are available, and they will be up for the next 60 days. That pretty much is bringing us to the end of the session and to the end of the 2-day summit. But before you head off, we'd really appreciate your feedback. Please take a minute to complete the session feedback form. Sorry, I'm just seeing the final slide coming up. Before you head off, we'd really appreciate your feedback. Please take a minute to complete the session feedback form, which you can access via the tab on the right. As we come to the end of the second day, I'll hand you over to our hosts, Michael Fieldhouse and Andrew Davis, to give us their closing remarks. So, Michael, I'll let you go first, and then if you could hand over to Andrew Davis.
Thank you, Wojciech, and thank you everyone for being part of this this great summit. I still can't believe it's our 5th summit. Again, I'm kind of keep it wrapping up and keeping it short. I'd like to thank all our panelists, speakers, keynotes, the participants, even the people behind the scenes, which are, we see them doing hard work, just going around a bit like duck underneath the water. So it's they've been doing a great job doing all the technical work behind the scenes. And thank you. And I think that's it's been a great. I'd like to call out a great summit, and I'd like to call out Orion Kelly for being our host, and thank you for guiding us and steering us through the last kind of 2 days, which has been fantastic. As I said, as Wojciech just said, we're really looking forward to, I'm looking forward to playing back some of the sessions and over the next 60 days. So please, feel free and engage and share the content. It's fantastic. Also like to, if you leave if you're going to leave you one thing, is just take a step and get involved in, autism employment, neurodiversity. Just take the step. That's all I can ask, is, and then I think that's just will make the impact bigger and bigger, and that's what we hope, that we can make a great impact to people's lives, and actually just and also in making jobs and environments more inclusive. And I again like to thank the Autism CRC for all their work, and also the special call out again to the working group and Andrew, Eddie and Wojciech for all their hard work behind the scenes. I'll hand over to Andrew now again, and I look forward to seeing all of us at the next summit. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks to all of you, as Michael said, for joining us over the last couple of days. It's clear from looking at the traffic, you've been a really engaged audience, sharing your experiences and offering up thoughtful questions in all 16 of the sessions. Listening to our more than 40 local and international speakers has been a humbling, inspiring and always thought-provoking experience. Thanks to everyone who's provided their expertise and their experiences to make this such a great event, as Michael said. Like Michael, I'd like to especially thank our host, Orion Kelly, the MC's MC. Orion has provided his own insightful perspective to session topics and facilitated so many of the great discussions that we've had over the past 2 days. There have been too many highlights to mention, but a special thanks to all of our keynote speakers, to Tom Derry, CEO of Rising Tide Car Wash, who shared how his team has, quote unquote, reframed how leaders think to build a business that operates across America, employing a predominantly neurodiverse workforce. To Jess Caden and her honest and personal insights into how she went from struggling through uni, as she said, and burning out in her first job, to where she is now, a HR executive and a leader in her field. Rajesh Anandan and Nicole Redizel from Ultranauts, who demonstrated how inclusion must be addressed both at the team level and at the executive level. In fact, Orion Kelly remarked that Nicole's talk on inclusion was the best he'd ever heard. And Vanessa Costanza-Gill and Lucy Stevens from Social Cipher and the neurodivergent gaming heroine Ava, and how Vanessa built the capacity of her business as a neurodivergent CEO. Feedback across the numerous panels from those tuning in has been very positive. As one attendee put it, as an autistic uni student, this gives me such hope for the future world for neurodivergent individuals. Of course, as Michael says, an event like this doesn't stand up and operate all on its own. There's been a huge amount of effort, coordination, and of course, support from a lot of people. It means a lot. A huge thanks to our sponsors. We all might have a vision of these events, but without our sponsors, vision's not much more than delusion. So thank you so much to DXC, GHD Engineering, the Trobe University, Untapped, ANZ and SAP. Also thanks to our session sponsors in AIG and the Sunport Group, and to those of you who have made donations. Thank you also. To the organising committee, and Michael's mentioned a couple, Andrew Eddy, Michael Fieldhouse himself, Nigel Phillips, Leslie Richardson-Winfer and Wojciech Nedachowski. Thank you all for a lot of long days, sleepless nights, and your skills in bringing this together with so many amazing speakers. Behind the scenes, thanks to the support of Kamal Hunjan and the Autism CRC Marcoms team. And as a final thought, I'd like to just go back to a couple of comments from the morning of day one. In his keynote, Tom Derry mentioned that developers know to focus on extreme users. And in the same vein, Ashley Mackay in the HR panel session talked about designing to your edge cases. This correlates to universal design principles, universal design that Simon Bury mentioned in the last session on mental health. And we've been applying this in our work, and we've heard it in many stories across this summit. And what universal design teaches us is if we build employment practices and environments that provide opportunity for neurodivergent employees to build and deploy their capabilities to the fullest, we will have practices and environments that provide opportunity for all employees to build and deploy their capabilities. And to achieve this, I again reflect on the comments from Orion Kelly and Tom Derry, imposing a call to action for all of us. It's not just about changing systems, practices, and so forth. We collectively need to change the way we think, and in particular, change the way leaders lead. As participants in the summit, you can help drive that change. Thank you again. Hope you've enjoyed it, and best wishes to all for each of your journeys.